All right, I'm going to make a video for the worksheet for integrated 2 for today. I got some questions as far as making a little bit more details, more examples, so I'm going to just do a video on the worksheet. All right, so whenever we see these problems talking about area, and then we've got some sort of equation, it's a quadratic, right, with something squared, just a letter, and just a number, we're going to be factoring, right? So that's what we did on Friday. It's what we did yesterday. So it's really just the same thing. They're just putting this into a word problem, but it's the exact same thing we've been doing. All right, so the first thing you're going to look for is A1. When we say A, we're talking about the invisible 1 right here in front of that squared term, okay? So that is your A. Remember, whatever is in front of just the letter is B, and then that number, in this case, that negative 80 out by itself is C. All right, so when A is 1, we're going to be able to do it the easy way. The only thing we're interested in is finding two numbers that multiply and give us negative 80, because that's C, right? C is negative 80. And those same two numbers add together and give us B, which is 2. All right? So the logic you want to think about is if we're multiplying to a negative number, right? They need to multiply to a negative number. You need one positive and you need one negative, right? Because if they're both positive, that gives us a positive. If they're both negative, that gives us a negative. All right, so we're going to need one of each. So you want to think about all the things that add up to 80 and figure out how we can have one positive, one negative that give us 2. All right, so you can think about what multiplies to 80. You can pause it if you want. Think for a second. All right, well, one thing that multiplies to 80 is you've got 8 and 10. Right? And those can also be combined and give us 2. Remember, one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative, because that's the only way that we're multiplying to a negative. So we have 8 and 10. The question was, which one is negative? Right? So it's really saying, is 10 minus 8 2, or is 8 minus 10 2? Well, it is 10 minus 8 is what gives us 2, or negative 8 plus 10 is our equivalent. Those are the same thing. All right, so the 8 needs to be negative, right? Because we want to add up to a positive number, so the small number is the negative one. Okay, so for our side links, we're just going to use those two numbers, x minus 8 and x plus 10. And that's all you've got to do. All right, so these ones are relatively straightforward. When a equals 1, the factoring is pretty easy. You just need the numbers that multiply to c and add to b. All right, as far as the perimeter, remember what perimeter is. That's like, I'm going to start here, I'm going to go up, I'm going to go over, and I'm going to go down, and I'm going to go back. It's like we're walking all the way around the square. All right, so I'm doing the right and the left side, which are the same. So it's like I have 2 of these, and I also have 2 of these, right? Because I have to go across the top and the bottom. So if we call this x minus 8 and this x plus 10, then the opposite sides will be the same. You know, and it doesn't matter which sides we call x minus 8 and x plus 10, right? Because there's going to be 2 of each either way. There's 2 tops, 2 bottoms. There's a top and a bottom that are the same, a right and a left that are the same. So it doesn't matter which one you pick for your right and left, top and bottom. All that matters is we've got 2 of these and we've got 2 of these. All right, so let's distribute the 2 and add these together. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. And then we're going to add 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 10 is 20. Combine like terms. So we've got 2x and 2x, that makes 4x. And then negative 16 plus 20 makes 4. So 4x plus 4 units would be the distance all the way around. All right, we've got another very similar example for number 2. So this time we're going to multiply to c, as always. So we want a number, what times a what, equals negative 70. Those same 2 numbers are going to add together and give us b, negative 3. All right, so again, you're thinking it needs to multiply to a negative, right? We're multiplying to a negative. So it needs one positive number, one negative number. And think about all the things that multiply to 70 and figure out of those options, which ones can add to negative 3. All right, so what you're going to find, so you could try like 70 and 1. That doesn't add up to negative 3. You could try 35 times 2, okay? Or, but again, what you're going to end up finding is that negative 7 times 10 -7, or actually, no, that's not right. It's going to be 7 and a -10, right? Because we want to add up to the negative. So the big number needs to be the negative one. 7 and -10. Because 7 times -10 is -70. 7 plus -10 is -3. All right, so this is going to get you good practice with multiplying. It's also going to get you practice with adding, subtracting, dealing with negative numbers in general, something that's super important, something that's super good to have experience with. All right, so we found our numbers. And again, we're going to do the exact same thing as the last time. You've got 7. You've got -10. Those are your expressions. And the same thing for the perimeter. So I have 2 of these, and you're all going to add that to 2 of these. So distribute the 2. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 7 is 14. And we're going to add that to 2 times x is 2x. 2 times -10 is -20. And again, combine like terms. So 2x and 2x makes 4x. 14 and -20 makes -6. So we got 4x minus 6 units to go all the way around. All right, number 3. This is where it gets a little trickier. So you have to notice that this a term is not 1, right? This is a 10 here. We got a equals 10. And then we've got b equals -31. And we've got c equals 24. All right, so this is what we did yesterday. This is the hard kind of factoring. All right, this is where we have to do the diamond. We've got to do the box. So we're going to set it up. If you remember, what goes up top is this first term right here. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of something different. The diamond. What goes up top is your b, -31. B goes up top. This is the notes from yesterday. And what goes down at the bottom is a times c. 10 times 24, which is 240. All right, calculators are totally okay. So this is the hardest part of this. So you've got to find the 2 numbers that multiply to 240, the 2 numbers that add to -31. All right, this is going to take a while. This is the strategy for this. This is what you want to try. Because you might be thinking, how in the world am I supposed to find numbers that multiply to 240? All right, here's what you're going to do. Do 240 and start dividing it by numbers. Do small numbers and then slowly get larger and larger. So like I could do 240 divided by 2. Do that on your calculator if you want. It gives you 120. What that tells us is that 2 times 120 equals 240, right? But again, notice that 2 and 120, I can't add those together and get 31. So that doesn't work anyways. So we're not going to worry about that. Or you can do, again, on your calculator, 240 divided by 3. That equals 80. That means that 3 times 80 is 240. Again, notice, we need to be adding to a negative number, though. So really, these should both be negatives, right? If I want to multiply to a positive, right? I either need 2 positives or I need 2 negatives. And since that we want to add to a negative, that tells us that we need 2 negative numbers, right? Because 2 positives don't add to a negative. 2 negatives do. Okay, so again, you're going to keep trying on your calculator or in your head if you're quick with multiplication and finding numbers that add to 240. So you have -4 and -60, but again, those don't add to -31. And you're going to keep going until you find the numbers that do. If it were up to me, it wouldn't be this many steps. I think this is a little over the top, but do your best with this. And eventually what you're going to find is you keep finding numbers that add to 240 is you're going to get to these two, 15 and 16, right? So as you keep doing 240 divided by 5, 240 divided by 6, 240 divided by 7, right? Because again, you're looking for 2 numbers that add to -31. You're going to eventually make it up to 15 and 16. So of -15 and -16, those multiply to 240, and they add to -31. All right, so once you found your numbers, this is what you do. Again, this is from yesterday, so we're going to make the box. The top left is the first term back from the original equation, this guy right here, that 10x squared. And then in the bottom right, that's going to be your A times C. So it's going to be that 240 number. All right. And then from there, what we need to do is we need to use those numbers that we had just found, and give me 1 second. I need to check something really quick. I don't know if there's a way to pause these videos, but I'm going to come right back and I'm going to finish this in part 2.